In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This beginning that we speak of was written as without space, a void. We embody this void in this dimension, personifying it with water. It was also written that a word out of supreme intelligence and maturity was brought forth into the void, simply saying, "Let there be light." The difficulties we have in our journey. Again, let there be light. And there was light. Soon there were other words uttered, one of which was earth to separate the waters. Because we share all of the elements within the earth, we too can call ourselves earth. Greetings. Many blessings, many thanks for you being here, and welcome to another step in the path that is the build, the burning bush, who will place itself in challenge and affliction to obtain knowledge, wisdom, understanding by means of factual evidence, to become a brighter, more vibrant vibration to be manifest into the world we know. I will now bring forth our brother Eli as he will bring his forth announcements, and we will get started with the build.
Blessings, everyone. I hope and pray that all is doing well. Despite the challenges that we do have, life itself continue to exist. The words we are expressing freely are not meant to offend anyone. Our words are not meant to be in any competition with anyone else's wisdom. Your wisdom and understanding is yours alone. We are choosing to remain consecrated while being in the furnace of affliction, the burning bush. Also, please remember, this is a space that we are trying to create. When you listen to God in Genesis, He told Moses to take off his shoes because the ground he is standing on is holy. He didn't say, Moses, keep your shoes off when you down the mountain, nor Moses, keep your shoes off when you go anywhere else. So we're not telling individuals to be their best at all times, but in this particular space, we must demand the best that we can be. And we are not judgmental. We do not judge. But there is a certain level of decorum that we appreciate. And that decorum is universal. The next phase of my introduction, of course, is conquering ignorance is essential. Nobody is born wise. A person has to make serious efforts to develop the qualities needed to be able to speak and achieve Mayat without falling into the twin traps of vanity and greed. Every day, the ears or the living have to be made to listen to words of wisdom. If the teachings is properly understood, then righteousness will become the reality. An Egyptian sage portrays himself a vigilant heart, a plain tongue, capable of satisfying God, because his or her entire existence rests on knowledge and not on belief. An adopt of calm and of silence, because he distanced himself from the rash, the gossip, and the envious, doing what is right. And of course, from the ancient Kemetic book of Two Ways, it says that the causes of wrongdoing are ignorance and immaturity. So, again, beloved beings of light and life, we are just trying to express what we're led to express with love and honesty and dignity and respect and fortitude. Blessings. Brother Mike, I do hear echo when I was speaking.
There are many challenges indeed. Give me just one moment to adjust sound. Perhaps this does help. If it does not, please let me know and we will go through further investigation as to what the situation is. This is of commonplace for those who are seeking and striving perfection. We welcome it gladly. Today marks the conclusion of the three-part series known as the Great Reset, the Great Replacements, and repair slash reparations. We will be on this particular podcast thanks to a unanimous decision for 1 hour and 30 minutes. This will give us the time that is needed to dig deeper into these discussions. Brother Eli and I have had multiple conversations, both here and elsewhere, regarding certain questions that man has yet to eloquently answer, succinctly come to conclusions for. We'll have an introduction to that as well. But the business as of now, repair and reparation. Now, first, let's go to the definition of repair. By definition, to repair something is to fix or mend a thing suffering from damage or a fault, or the action of fixing or mending something. Interestingly enough, the sentences that are accompanied with these definitions to be used as example are as follows. Faulty electrical appliances should be repaired by an electrician, and the truck was beyond repair. Now, the definition of reparation. The making of amends for a wrong thing done by paying money or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. The compensation for war damage paid by a defeated state. The sentences here are as follows. The courts required a convicted offender to make financial reparation to his victim. And the Treaty of Versailles imposed heavy reparations and restrictions on Germany. Here is the rub. Here lies the rub. Humanity, not as a whole, but definitely in part, has made itself a victim, has identified itself almost with full pride as a victim, as something broken by systems which certain entities within humanity has not agreed to. This mindset is the genesis of certain conversations that grew to movements and supposed revolutions, not just by vernacular of speech or protest, but as far as scientific experiments in order to repair or give reparation to the victims. Who are the victims? The victims are those who feel that they are out of the loop known as tradition, religion, and the usual way of things. I must be more specific. Those along multiple spectrums, whether it is mental, functional, or of certain identity. Two spectrums in particular. Spectrums of autism and spectrums of gender identity. I'm going to give you an example of the latter, and then we will speak later on an example of the former. I'll explain why I'm in that order soon. But for now, contemplate with me the following excerpt that I have found called The Butt Baby. It is a book, a science fiction humor novel that speaks ever so lightly of a science experiment for a male to experience childbirth through his rectum. I will continue with the synopsis of the book. Chuck is a regular married guy on the surface. When a drunken experience at the home of his high school buddy turns wild, he rediscovers the joys of intimacy with men. Well, with one man in particular. In a perverse mishap, Chuck ends up with a fetus in his rectum. It's alive and affects everything he does. Why is this humorous, supposed alleged humorous publication significant? Because it identifies itself as a science fiction humor. As we have shown in previous builds, science fiction has proved itself to not be fiction at all, but a blueprint for more developments in technologies. I went further into the research and have found that there are certain science that is trying to emulate what this book represents with the hope that transgender can experience the miracle of childbirth through a fetus inserted within their anal cavity. I wish this was a joke. It is not. Why are we speaking of this? Because there is a certain sector within humanity who believes that because they were not born the correct gender, that they have been wronged by existence itself, has assumed itself to be the victim, and is searching for reparations in the means of being able to experience childbirth by any means necessary as a social justice to himself, themself, itself, and feels that they are entitled to this procedure, that it should be once approved, fully insured as any other childbirth, and respected just the same. This is science that is being worked on as we speak. Another science experiment, which is being funded by higher ups, one of which is Elon Musk, to insert chips within the brain in order to immediately assume within the self certain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding without having to go through the process of obtaining it through books, publications, or even life experiences. This reasoning is because it could, with hope, end the idea of learning disabilities through manipulation, electronic manipulation of the brain via this chip. It is also in the works. And there are people who are the parents of those with learning disabilities, Asperger's, of autism, and many other different sectors within the spectrum that are seeking this as reparations to fix their broken children. This has been assumed that the children are at all broken in the first place. Before I go into my thoughts and further my research regarding these things, I would like to turn over the mic to Eli just for his initial remarks and responses, as this was not clearly spoken of during a build outside of this one.
Blessings, Brother Mike. Thank you for sharing what you shared. So, there is a song, I'm going to read a little bit of its lyrics. Do you know where you going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know? Do you know where you going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know? Do you get what you're hoping for? When you look behind you, there's no open doors. What are you hoping for? Do you know? Once we were standing still in time, chasing the fantasies that filled our minds. You knew how I loved you, but my spirit was free, laughing at the questions that you once asked me. Do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know? That is the theme from the movie Mahogany by Diana Ross. And I hope that you guys will go and look to see what that movie is about. There are many things that we are allowed to do. I remember when I was growing up, we used to say, the sky is the limit. Now in 2022, we know that we are capable of going beyond that perceived limit. There are many things that we're allowed to do. The only problem is, a lot of times, we do not agree with the results. However, we continue to just twist knobs to see what's going to happen. I remember many years ago, it was a movie about Caligula Caesar. You can look it up. I think it's a book as well. I remember Caligula was very free. And I remember I was young at the time, and he took his fist and punched his fist into his friend's behind. Just punched it. So back then, I didn't know how life was. I mean how life was at the time, and how free people are to experiment with things they may have to deal with when they're older. There are so many stories in life. I remember many years ago, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was a person who was pregnant um, in this movie. And that is very clever for the people to say they want reparations, and the reparations they want is to produce a child. To me, that is very clever. That is very clever that the reparations they want is to produce a child. So I just hope that the evidence, that they're honest with the evidence of their results, whatever they choose to do. And that's why I just love to begin with Diana Ross's song, theme song of Mahogany. Do you know where you're going to? So wherever you guys are going, because I'm not going with you, we have our own particular destiny, which is our right. And this is one of my favorite versions of Job, because a lot of times we think reparations could be financial reparations. So, a very short story of Job. Job was a cool guy, and God and Satan had a conversation about this cool guy who really loved his God. So, Job got sick. Well, God allowed Satan to take everything from Job and even his health. So everybody was like, "What happened, Job? What is going on?" I mean, he lost his children, he lost everything, he lost his health. He didn't understand what was going on. I think his wife was saying, of course, curse God. For some reason, the Bible have the woman as the advocate of everything that is opposite, for the completion of a destiny. So she said, curse God and die. So Job did not curse God, and he did not die. So when you go to the average church that says Job, God, bless Job with double the children and double the money and double this and double that, ranting on this and ranting on that. But as human beings, most of you know you can have a financial gain. But if you receive that financial gain because a loved one may have been ran over by a school bus, your child may have been run over by a school bus, we know that we don't care how much money, how much financial reparations you receive, the memories of that child, there is no healing there. So I publicly am speaking about that version of Job, because I never spoke about that version, because no one else talked about Job's heart wasn't healed. And if you look at our brothers and sisters who believe that they were born in different circumstances, look at their evolution. I remember Prince sung a song, said that his mother was never satisfied. When you see that community specifically, they are never satisfied. they continue, because I remember it was just, I think, the gay and lesbian, and then they start saying queer. I mean, the names just start piling up. The names just start piling up. And now the procedures are piling up. The pain and suffering are piling up as well. And the dissatisfaction continue to pile up. So if you guys are honest with yourself, from me personally, please continue on your journey. And I would love to watch and document how nature responds to your journey. Because when you deal with certain circles who rule, when you have one out of the 24 that disagree with what is going on, and they may have had an idea or have a new idea. And if the other ones disagree, they say, well, we will give you 1,000 years. In nature, in existence, the higher consciousness. And when you produce a product, let's see how nature responds to what you produce. And most of the time, when you look at our modern religions, they have a lifespan of about 2,000 years, more or less. You always have to bring someone else. There's a new comforter coming. There's a reviver. So it's something with even the religions we are establishing. Because I have yet to see the sun be renewed and the stars be renewed. Nature exists. There are no calendars. We can say that, oh, it's going to take 1 billion years, but we will not be alive. We don't have the evidence of our particular star dying. We don't have that evidence. So individuals and the collective, if your reparations is to do whatever you need to do, just please allow me as an individual to document what happens to you, good or bad, from a level of truth and honesty. So those who come after us will have the evidence. Because as you know, some will say, those who do not know their history will doom to repeat it. Blessings.
In different levels of this human experience, different heights when we see the world. I remember when I was only 4 feet tall. And when I was 4 feet tall, I had 2 people that I had to answer to. One was 5'5", the other was 6'2". My mother and my father, a woman and a man, by birth, without any modifications whatsoever. And these 2 individuals who had come together to form one, which is what that means, the triangulation, geometrically speaking, the triangle being the strongest architecture. Male, female coming together, making one. The true Trinity, man, woman, and child, which proves itself in architecture as the strongest shape known to mankind. They used to say to me many idioms, many sayings many versions of their knowledge. One of those, oh, that's good. One of those is, and I will say it in the dialect that they used. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. When I was 4 feet tall, I did not completely know what that meant. When I was 5 feet tall, I didn't know what that meant. I stand 5'11", 42 Gregorian years here. And I can tell you that even still, there are many layers to that. I have ascertained enough from my personal experience to know that the natural order of things, which intrinsically gives purpose to all mankind equally, for there is no substitute for that would deem it the same justice as nature intended. That the trinity of man, woman, and child, which has survived millennia, despite 250-year-old empires that would repeatedly rise and fall, despite generations who have learned in the sustainability of their own existence to soon fight each other over who suffers more, who is more strength induced. Good one. And who deserves more out of the generation that they brought forth. Fights of this. That despite all of those things, that one thing, that man and woman and child thing, is not broken. Those who believe that they are a victim of being the wrong mentality, the wrong gender, and have innately felt that they have been wronged by their creators and co-creator, wronged by their parents for whatever psychological happenings happened while in the womb of the mother, wronged by God even for their makeup genetically and their existence spiritually. That this victim mindset has never succeeded longer than a single empire, let alone set precedent for anything deemed value enough to supersede nature. Not one experience can be brought to this sacred space that would prove otherwise. And if I am incorrect, I implore thee to come forth with said example. But until then, nature has always been nature, and it has always been just, doing no injustice to no person. For us as intellectuals to have a certain party make it their business to take forth what has been brought onto this plane naturally and change nature destroys nature. Here are examples. Organic foods was a time where you did not have to mention whether something was organic or not. It was innate. It was inferred. And then genetic modification came along as a means to bring forth crops more plentifully, increasing the volume with the increasing volume of mankind existence on this planet to feed them all. However, we still have hungry and homeless, and we who partake in said genetic modifications eventually fail in our health more rapidly than those who do not partake in the organic state of the same product that took years to create. I surmise that the exact same thing that happens to the banana, that happens to the African yam, which is now our carrot, that happens to even our water, which has proven itself evident as a detriment. No matter how slow that detriment arises, this is equally unhealthy. I do that by evidence, create the hypothesis that such tearing up of the physical nature of the male body, of the feminine body as well, would render itself in such a disarray that there will be multiple casualties upon the implementation of said project for sake of science. Unfortunately, they might be seen as saviors. They might be seen as martyrs for a cause, for a cultivated culture of people. They will be seen as heroes. I tell you these things because I want those who are ready, who sit in this burning bush with us, to not be afraid, but to be observant. Just as Brother Eli has said, we will take record of these procedures, and by its result, place it upon the table and see it for what it has brought forth. However, in every science project, after the results, after the conclusions, there's a small little fine print called the limitations. The limitations are things that were not necessarily thought about before, during, or even after the project. Here are some limitations, and I will form them in the form of questions, just for sake of mental imagery and debate. If a fetus is to be implanted into the rectum, how then will they defecate? How then will that individual be able to release waste? If this rectal birth is to come to pass, will there be a such thing thought of as natural labor. What does that entail? Of the musculature that is so complex within the anal cavity. The anal cavity has 10 times the nerve endings of the cervical area, of the vaginal area, of the birth canal, which means there is belief that it will be 10 times as painful for it to come to fruition. The only comparison we have is the passing of kidney stones in regards to men experiencing anything near childbirth. Now, the limitations in regards to the chip, the implant. If you are witnessing now a slight change in the color of the display that is being used, aside from the border, which I believe is absolutely highly significant of what we stand for, this is a new or different personal computer with different lighting. Because the old personal computer with the old lighting expired. Chips have expirations. What is it then for a need of upgrading of said chip to be inserted into a human being for sake of immediate intelligence? Will there not be viruses? Can they not be hacked? Can they be manipulated by the manipulator, him or herself, to put whatever thoughts they wish to have into these children, into these experiments? These are all of the limitations. And to be correct, my vernacular sees quite assimilation to contain not just limitations, but lamentations as well. The gnashing of teeth, the begging to be ended, the suffering that is not the same as the lone suffering of love, of patience and time to obtain your version of being the greatest version on this existence, but a different suffering altogether, like the hell that has been depicted as a means to scapegoat people into being better people. There is a grand problem with this that must be solved. However, this social Darwinistic approach towards science will be met with its results, and it will be sooner than the end of our lifetimes. We will see this, and we will say that we were ready. Unfortunately, that will call for a different set of reparation and repair for the burning bush, because what we will have to repair from is the trauma, empathetic trauma that we will feel knowing that that trauma from other people. There are no bandages for that. There are no healing salves for that. There is no aspirin for that type of trauma. What I am asking us, the burning bush, to be ready for is a very tall order. It is taller than 4 feet tall. It is taller than 5 feet tall. It is taller than 5'11". It is taller than the tallest skyscraper. For we know the sky is not a ceiling. This will be an astronomical amount of trauma. But if this is to be so, we must allow the great reset to happen, to cull the herd. We must allow the great replacements to separate the wheat from the chaff. And we must be willing and able to repair from this trauma. If we do this, the new earth that is spoken in Revelation will be manifest. It will not be pretty at first, but it will take what we are doing right now with our bare hands. We will have to rebuild brick by brick the human psyche, our approach of what is and isn't right, wrong, indifferent. And because of that, we will indeed be judged because we wait while they endure their rewards and we do nothing. And that will in turn make us judges, not as the final judge, not as if all judgment is negative, but if life is a stage, and we judge based upon the dance, based upon the song, how well it is sung in front of us. Like in Olympia, like in America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, they are judges. Relative on a scale of performance, of eloquence, of symmetry, of conviction to the human heart. The question is, will we be ready to assume that role, to take that mantle once all of this happens? Because we do indeed, by knowing the past, can surmise where they're going to. I would love to hear what Eli has to say about that.
Thank you, brother. What I was showing is earlier is this the daily life of ancient Rome. Basically, is almost everything that is going on today. Basically, has already been done. Also, the other book I was talking about when Brother Mike was talking about his mother and father producing, is basically this book, Tuning of the Diamond. This book it goes into how the body become a diamond, and how you use both forces to produce, that's the yin and yang and things of that nature. It was a gentleman some time ago. He is a rapper. Little Uzi, I think is UZI. This gentleman had a diamond placed in the center of his forehead. The diamond was worth, it says, $24 million. And I just looked up that he got the diamond removed. Also, I wanted to look up, I didn't get the chance to, but to look up the chemical or the pill that they are giving children in order to hinder them from puberty. And I think it was actually Candace Owens. She was saying that the same chemical they use for children is the same one they give to people in the penitentiary to prevent them from desiring to have sex or something like that. I'll give more information on that, or y'all can look it up as well. Also, they have other books that you can look up. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll maybe give those books in another segment. But brothers and sisters, I am in thought. I am in contemplation because I have never heard of such things as this, as giving birth there. Like a question I'd like to ask Brother Mike, if you don't mind. How will the fetus receive nourishment? Do they say that in the article? How the baby or the fetus receive nourishment in order to grow?
That is yet another limitation that has
Okay.
not been discussed.
There are so many things to think about. Human beings, we have such a mind to explore. We have a level of dissatisfaction. For example, is Black Friday. Black Friday used to be a time when you had Sunday dinner with your family. Thanksgiving, I think it was, I forgot. Yeah, Thanksgiving dinner with your family. And then later on, this Black Friday came into existence. Now it's to the point that people sit outside the building, which I think is kind of cool. I mean, it's cool to camp out. I think that's fun. What I see that is disturbing is when you have adults with other adults literally using their fists, punching the other adult in the face over products they already have at home. The violence that they show in the stores towards the building, the door of entry, and to each other physically. So, how are these things going to be repaired? Will there actually be a day of judgment? Or is that day 1,000 years? Look, another thing that we want to talk about when it comes to the reset. United Airlines buys 200 electric air taxis. These air taxis will be released for service by 2026. If you look at where the world is going, we will have cars that will not need an oil change, transmission fluid, spark plugs, all the mechanics that goes into a gas combustible engine. Look at all of these careers, these jobs, these specialties will have no need to exist. You will need you will not need to get an oil change. You will not need to get a tune-up. So to be honest, I am kind of excited. The reason why, because all of my life, literally, I'm 49 years old. A few more months, I'll be 50. All of my life, I've been watching people who had dealerships, and some of them were responsible for repairs of the vehicle. For the first time in the 80s, I heard something. I think it was called a lemon, a car that looks like it's supposed to work, but it does not. When you look at this particular craft, because I'm a craftsman, it is a craft to work on cars. People have been abused. It is a culture of vipers. These people are satanic. Literally, I do not remember a time ever in America specifically that any woman felt comfortable going to the dealership or to a mechanic by herself. Why? Because the abuse. They use her ignorance against her, and they were vicious. When you had individuals who may not be as financial astute, if you will, they will get their tax return checks, hopefully to buy something so they can go to work, which at the time may have been McDonald's or some little simple job that does not pay that much money. And I remember this thing called buy here, pay here came into existence. When you see the abuse of these people who went to the auction, purchased these cars for the low, as the term they use, for low cost, sell them for a high cost because the down payment will basically pay for the car. The down payment that these buy here, pay here places ask were the cost of their purchase, their original purchase. I mean, just so much abuse. I remember when the title company came into existence. If you need a little cash, come and bring your title. But come to find out, the interest rates were just extreme. And you will not see these title places in wealthy neighborhoods, just like you will never see a Church's Chicken in a wealthy neighborhood. So the abuse that these auto people, what they have done to the minds and the spirits of these people who may not be educated enough to protect themselves. So I'm kind of grateful to get rid of these people. I am very serious. I don't care who you are. Because we don't know the damage that these people have done. I mean, when you have a car and God for some reason blessed you to drive somewhere very far and it breaks down, and you have sometimes these mothers with children, they may be 18 or 19, really trying to make it on their own. They have made mistakes, so what? But they're working. I remember they made women on welfare find jobs. So the barrier in between these people were these car um, minions. They will be right there in the middle, and all of these women will use their tax credit, their child tax credit, to go purchase a car. And then something else came into the evolution of this. When you get your tax W-2 forms, please come to the dealership. You don't need to cash in your tax return check. Just bring your check to a low life dealership, a buy here, pay here. I mean, y'all need to just disappear from that perspective. I'm gonna give you an example. I decided at later on years to go get my little 2-year diploma as a diploma from a technical school in heating, air conditioning, ventilation, and refrigeration. HVAC, HVACR. Every place I went, they forced people to buy a new unit, and the prices were in between $5,000 to $20,000. And I remember going to these places, removing the unit and putting a whole new unit in. Now, a lot of these units needed only a part to be replaced, and the cost of that part was probably $10, more or less. And they would take the parts that they removed from the old units from their home, and when they need to do maintenance work on their customers, they would use those used parts. And even when I went to Arizona, so that's why I give a lot of information for free. I used to show the people just how to do it. Perfect example. The first thing that you may need to check if your air conditioning is not working is to check the thermostat to see if it's an ant or a bug or something just hindering the electrical current. Something that you can check on your own. Another thing, if you may have a leak, go get some dishwater, pour it over the holes, the little metal holes. And if you see bubble, then you may have a leak. These are just simple things that you can do. Also, go to the store yearly, get this particular chemical that cleans the and just spray over, and just it's just things that you can do on your own to save a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not really fully blaming the madmen and mad women that abuse their fellow brothers and sisters, because they may have financial problems because of another form of abuse. You have certain doctors, you have certain medical facilities. It's just very abusive. They may have a relative that have to make payments on some medical bills, or them themselves, because they was drinking sodas and partying, enjoying themselves while they was working hard, because changing things on vehicles are hard work. So they may have developed an illness. So you see the trickling effect of bad behavior. So we're going to be reset on that. It's going to be a reset, which is deserved. But you already know it's going to be people who are going to abuse that. As us humans. So another reset I think is going to be nice is driving. I have watched so many semi trucks, and myself personally, I was hit by a semi truck, 80,000 pounds, on October the 6th, 2020. So I know what it feels like to be hit by a semi truck. And I went to my second job that night after being hit by a semi truck, full impact. A lot of drivers are sleepy. They're being overworked. It's just too much. Everything is too much. I'm not going to be too long. But I want us to understand that there's an end and there is a beginning. The means to an end will influence the end result, and also the desired end will influence the means to it. So remember, whatever you have to do, try to have a balance. Just like the millionaires and billionaires, they have to donate a large sum of money each year to a nonprofit organization. So if you're a mechanic that you have to swindle people, once in a while, fix a car for someone for free. Donate your time. Because every hog have to release. And that's why we are told not to eat pigs. Because pigs do not have pores. They have in between their hoofs a little space that the pus come out. So my mind is all over the place dealing with these individuals who want to have anal deliveries. So brothers and sisters who want to have anal deliveries, again, if it would be okay, please give the honest evidence, the honest truth, which some will, others will not. Because for some reason you want to do this type of reparations, enjoy. Now, just like the waters, salt water do not mix with fresh water. Also, I posted a video. I was about to say published a video. And people, please develop your minds because God has so much stuff to show us. And you will not spend a lot of time dealing with human beings because for the most part, it is a waste of time. But when they was exploring the waters, they was going deep, deep, deep into the ocean. And this gentleman was in some type of submarine contraption. And he saw a shore, like a seashore, like when you're on the beach. And you know, when you're on the beach, you see the water goes on the shore and goes back into its original location. It's like a push and pull. He said while he was in water, he saw another lake or ocean that had a shore. And when he tried to penetrate or go through this lake or ocean, he could not go through it in the machine. And he said each time he went down, just like when you throw a rock into the water, as you see the ripple in the flat. And he said you see the ripple effect go into the little shore area, which I think is like mollusk, and some other seashores. But that is amazing. There is waters within waters, and just like fractals, when you look at fractals, you see the same shape over going into itself. So, brothers and sisters, if you don't want to be annoyed by the repetitive of human behavior, there's so much to learn on this planet. And I can guarantee if you spend enough time in the craft of learning, once in a while you'll look back and you'll see human beings doing what they normally do, but you will not spend a lot of time being annoyed because you don't have a lot of time. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm like, wow, look at that. And no telling what's inside there. Because I remember some people saying that they went into the earth and they saw a sun. They saw a whole civilization inside the earth. So that is practical from this new discovery, which they found in the the 1990s. So, brothers and sisters, these people who gonna have anal deliveries, I mean, they're gonna have breastfeed maybe from their penis, They gonna have things coming out their nostrils. I mean, they can do whatever they want, God willing. Do whatever you want, because you guys are discovering something new. And please allow us to discover new things that are natural, that is already on this earth. And I hope we can show both evidence of our discoveries in peace, because you have a right to do in your own space. Now, I'm just being honest. I just don't think it's fair to have these mingling. I'm not into the mingling. If you go to a gay club, remember, it says it is a gay club. So if you go in and disagree, you read the sign. You went in, so you have no right to disagree with the behavior. If you knock on a door, if you seeking, you shall find. So when you find information, you went into that area. They didn't ask you to come. So we observe it and we document it, but we won't be judgmental. And we ask in the same favor. When we trying to be to the highest level of discipline on any level we can do or able to do, don't walk through the boundaries that we have and come with some, nah, I want to change. I want to change this. Listen, think about this. Why is nature consistent? There is something that nature is trying to tell us. And I am telling you, the hardest thing to do as a human is to be consistent. I mean, whoa, that's a challenge. It's like, man. So there is some type of reward or some type of knowledge to have a breakthrough of being consistent. And that's why I appreciate Queen Elizabeth, the great queen. Because you guys don't know what it's like to be responsible for millions of people. You can judge, but I'm talking about me. I cannot judge. And this woman, who is a human being, had to maintain certain laws within her queendom that an average human definitely cannot do. And to do it for 70 years? To have a job for 70 years? That alone, I take my hat off. I mean, 70 years. And they said she didn't have a scandal. In 70 years. Just to think, you have never seen her in her pajamas in 70 years. You have never heard her misspeak. She had no misgivings verbally in 70 years. Her code of conduct consistently in 70 years were to a level of a queen. To always to have the hair done, all this stuff with you guys can't even be consistent every other day. You come up with so many excuses. I'm on my monthly cycle. I mean, all these excuses. You women have excuses. So all you women want to talk about Queen Elizabeth, please present yourself to the best of manner for 70 years without excuses. And most of you, I'm going to say these words because you talk so bad about this woman. I mean, oh my goodness. She's a colonizer. I guarantee you have an ant farm in your grass. You have roaches and things inside your house. They want to exist. They have a right, but you kill them. You don't know what it takes to run your own household. Sometimes you got to whoop your children. Come on. You got so many diverse people on this planet that will kill you. You got some very serious people who had difficulties in life and they have no room for mercy and grace. They will kill you. You don't know what it takes to rule your own self, let alone millions of people consistently. You can't call off. There are no vacations when it comes to that level of governance. Again, you have a right to judge, but I'm going to fire back. Man, you people are so despicable. I mean, man, I mean, you gonna judge a crown when you never created your own crown yourself. I mean, people, you talk about the African kings and queens and they be in huts. I mean, come on, man. These people are in huts while this woman stayed in facilities that were blocks long and they were clean every day. You had to maintain that financially. Look at these entertainers who get a little money. I remember Holyfield had a mansion in College Park. And you know, little people, when you get a little money, you know how to buy something, but you don't know how to maintain something. It is difficult to maintain something. Judges of Queen Elizabeth. You walk around talking about black people specifically. I'm a queen this and I'm a queen that. Name one time that your bathroom were top tier every second of the day. Your bathroom, your underwear, your underarms, your hygiene, your hygiene. And this woman in that level who always had people around her, she had to maintain her hygiene. I'm talking about on a primitive level. I'm not talking about even educationally. You don't even know what it means to go to those type of boarding schools as a child. You want to be a child, but you are a prince or a princess and you have obligations that you have to follow or you will be corrected immediately. I remember Prince William gave a story that he almost harmed or killed his cousin. The great Queen Elizabeth got off her horse, literally ran to him and whooped his butt. He got a whooping, a physical whooping from the queen. Because you have to maintain a lineage. These people value their bloodline. They are serious. You don't value nothing. Well, you value being a degenerate. You will go eat chitterlings. You will go eat hog maw. That means you are sending things to your blood. You are degenerating your blood because when you take these hog maw and chitterlings and you take them out of the refrigerator in the morning, it's a thick blubber. This is a queen. She can't walk around and be obese. I remember my beloved Janet Jackson, her and I, we are Tauruses. We be thin one day, fat the next day. Then one day, fat the next day. Then one day, fat the next day. I am telling you, listen, if you ever went to etiquette school, you judges of Queen Elizabeth, listen, oh my God, I'm not even going to the details of these people have to be fully dressed to eat dinner every day and breakfast and lunch and brunch. There have I'm not talking about the obligations that they have to keep enemy combatants behind walls. A lot of you women, y'all can't even handle, like I was talking about the dealership dude. When you are royalty, you have to study. I'm going to give you an example. You people who want to judge Queen Elizabeth, not knowing what it takes to keep a kingdom alive to maintain it. She killed people. Ha 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 ha. But you got murderers in your neighborhood. Man, listen. Okay. You have a guy named Pharaoh. When you in that level of rulership, you have to know multiple languages. You have to know the culture of those people. that alone will eliminate most of you judgers. Because the folk ways and more ways of a culture is different from yours. But in order to be hospitable, you have to know their ways. You get exhausted from people just visiting you unexpectedly. Back to the Pharaoh. One version of Joseph is this. You know the story of Joseph and Pharaoh. He had to interpret the dreams. In order to speak to Pharaoh, lower class of people who want to judge upper class of folks, lower class of people, in order for Joseph to speak to Pharaoh, let me back this up a little bit. When you lower class of people were given the honor to speak to someone who were royalty, in some even African cultures, you will have to go bathe for about a week before you can go and visit the royalty physically. You will have to bathe. You will have to have certain fragrances, certain scents to go in front of royalty. You know what it takes to always smell. Again, back to the Pharaoh. Y'all don't even know, man. Y'all just have a degree at a university. These people will have multiple degrees, multiple disciplines, learn martial arts, learn the craft of shooting, military tactics. I mean, in order to be royalty, it's a lot. You can't be a dummy. Okay, back to Joseph. Even though Pharaoh needed to know the interpretations of these dreams, Pharaoh had to follow the rules. In order to speak to Pharaoh, Pharaoh was on 72 steps. So if you were a layman person, lower class, Pharaoh had to know your language. So when you spoke to Pharaoh, you go to the first level, speak your language. Pharaoh will speak your language back to you with the solutions for you. So if you were somebody who wanted to get other information from Pharaoh, you will have to know all 72 languages in order to speak with the Pharaoh. So Joseph, despite Pharaoh needed the interpretation, the proper interpretation of that dream, Joseph had to know how to speak 72 languages. So when Joseph came, the first language he spoke, I think, was his original language. And Pharaoh said, okay. So Joseph went to another stairs and he spoke fluently another language. And Pharaoh spoke back to him. And Joseph walked to another stair. And it said Jehovah gave him, Joseph, these multiple languages. Now, Pharaoh could have broke down and says, my people are going to be destroyed. So we're going to throw away this law. Let's just go have Joseph come speak with us. But no. Joseph had to fluently speak and he had to answer 72 questions in order to have counsel with the Pharaoh. Y'all people don't know what it takes to go through these things. These are humans too. They want to go outside and play, but they have these obligations. And that's why they're in positions of power and you are not. So I want you to understand, please, you do have a right to call Queen Elizabeth all the names you want. That is justified. And all I have a right to say is, let me go see your work and let me go see your kingdom. And it cannot be 1 million people because the British Empire ruled the planet. That type of knowledge to be able to rule a planet of different cultures of people is something to me is very difficult. It takes a lot. Oh, the customs. So please continue to judge this woman. I will not judge this woman. I'm going to honor Queen Elizabeth. I honor you, Queen Elizabeth, for showing an example from a European perspective of how to be a queen. I am so grateful because all of these people who run little organizations know that they have enemies within the organizations. Even Jesus had Judas. So we don't know the ins and outs of how to run our own household, let alone to run kingdoms for hundreds of years. So I do not know. And yes, I may be saddened by the death of these people because I am coming from a perspective of ignorance. Because I know you people project history in advance. Y'all be having plans 100 years in advance. I don't know what it takes to have that. So y'all know what it takes. So again, I'm going to stop there. Please, people, when you judge people like Queen Elizabeth, please honor and respect us enough to show your work and what you can do and produce. And all the people who judge in white people, they lie and manipulate black people. You know, first of all, you have never gave the answer of why God allowed white people to put us in this condition, let alone maintain for us to be in this condition. It's something that's greater that you may not be looking at. But if you look at a lot of these people study. They spend a lot of money. Look how much money they spend to excavate something. While we judging, oh man, give us our stuff back from Africa. Give us our stuff. You know, y'all had diamonds in the ground, but you get money for diamond cutting. You have to build the machine, and then you have to build the part to maintain the machine. That's what I'm saying. We want all these things back from Europeans, but we do not want to get the knowledge what it take to maintain or even formulate these things. But again, you have a right to have your opinion, and we enjoy and love your opinions. But please give us the right to give pushback from our perspective that may not be your perspective, because live and let live. And again, do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know?
There's one other song that I have to add to this build. Watching the days go by. The name of the song is Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. And the entire song talks about our lives, realizing where our life is, and has certain iterations as this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. But the reason, the significance is when you spoke of water, 2/3 of this song is actually speaking about water. And in the bridge, before the two choruses, in between the two choruses, it says water dissolving and water removing. There is water at the bottom of the ocean. This song was written in the 80s. How many heads did that go over? Okay, so we have proven yet again that the build, if given the labor of these hands and these two minds, will never be enough time. However, on our next discussion, on our next bill, we will talk about that unanswerable question, the
Brother
somewhat
Mike,
of an interesting stalemate between.
brother, brother Mike, I
Mhm.
know I was long winded. So please give your final,
Yes, sir.
what you ever had to share. And we'll go a little longer, but please let's keep it, routine. I know you have final things that you may have to share, because I didn't know I was going to go along in
Yeah.
that rendition like that. So please,
Oh, that's fine.
your final. Yes, sir.
That's very true. Very true. Okay. So we will continue next week. But in the meantime, in between time, as a means of consistency, let us remember that as the burning bush, we are this light. For the candle cannot complain against the harshness and the darkness. It instead emits itself, then admits to itself that it is everything that we needed. It is the light, and we are that light. And to prove that, we will not blow this candle out and away from us. We will take this in, realizing that by this example, we are showing that this energy, this passion, this power and poise is within us to pass to other people. And so we take it in. And we show beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are not harmed. Many, many plentiful blessings to all who are here and all who will one day be here, and seeing the evidence of two individuals within this human experience being proof that God sees, hears, and loves the burning bush. Blessings.